This time we're in horizontal format again. Hello and welcome to today's live stream. We are in May and this is week 1 of the Aloha 26 May Art Challenge. Today we're going to paint a greeting card featuring an Ohia Lei. And we got a little bit of sparkle here too. All right. So I'm going to turn around the camera and talk about today's supplies. All right. And as always, please let me know about, oopsie, audio, zooming in, zooming out, you know, all the good stuff. Okay, just a second until I have my phone in the holder, and here we go. All right. You can see that I already also pulled out a book here, one of my absolute favorite books here in Hawaii, Lei Aloha. And I'm just going to show you a photo of an Ohia Lei in a minute. I also have another book here that I just very recently purchased. Excuse me. It's actually about Hawaiian birds, but it also features a few beautiful shots of Hawaiian flowers and trees. So I thought I'd show you this as well. But this is later. Let's talk about supplies first. And as always, I have a chat open here on my iPad as well. So every now and then I'm going to look over to see what's going on in the chat. Hey, MJ. Hi, Kerstin. Hello to South Carolina and Germany. Hi, Carrie. Hello, Suze. So over in New Zealand, you guys switch between summer and winter time too? Yeah, we don't have that here in Hawaii. I think I mentioned that during the last live stream last week, that we don't change the clock between summer and winter, which is sometimes a bit confusing for you guys because you're trying to figure out what time my live stream is. So yeah, in Hawaii, time stays the same throughout the year. Okay, so the paper, unfortunately, I'm not sure which paper this is. I think it's Fabriano watercolor paper. I know it's watercolor paper, even though it's pretty thin. And it might be this 25% cotton paper, but unfortunately, I'm not sure. However, for today's technique, I don't think you need one specific paper. You can use watercolor paper or mixed media paper. We're not going to be working too wet or too detailed. It's more of a very loose technique. So just use any watercolor paper or mixed media paper you have at hand. And as for paints, I'm using my handmade Aloha watercolors in the colors yellow. This is a lemon yellow here. Any kind of yellow you have will work for this project today. This is a chromium oxide green called Matcha. And any green you have, you can even use blue and mix your own green with the yellow. Then, of course, you know, because we're painting Ohia Lehua today, I thought, why not use Ohia, which is a vermilion red hue. And ta-da, this is one of the brand new colors that will come out on Sunday, May 24th. This is part of the new Japan-inspired set. So this is a gold shimmer, super, super sparkly, called kintsugi. Kin is gold, and tsuki in this combination with the word kin means to repair or joint. So if you have never heard of the technique kintsugi, it's basically a way of thinking in Japan where you take broken pottery and you fix it by adding gold it's like a gold glue. I'm not sure, it's lack of a better word. And you piece the broken pieces together, and then you actually see the repair line. So you don't try to hide it. It's actually accentuated. And it represents, I think, a typical way of thinking in Japan, that things are as they are, and if they're broken, then that's just another thing you have to deal with in life. So yeah, but long story short, I will actually introduce all the new colors to you in another live stream in 2 weeks. So all of the new colors will be introduced here. Okay, paper, paints. I'm going to use 2 brushes today. I have a size 8 round brush. This is my Alohawatercolors travel brush. And I have a size 2 round brush, very pointy, by the Pigeon letters. And as always, I'm going to write down all the supplies and the names, etc. in the description box below. I have a pencil and a kneadable eraser. And last but not least, I have some washi tape. This was kindly gifted to me by Lisa from Germany, and it is just basically a larger sized washi tape. You can use anything you have at hand in the washi tape department. It doesn't have to be this one, because I don't think this is actually available outside of Europe. All right, now, oh, and last but not least, I have a ceramic mixing palette here as well. All right, let's put this to the side for a minute so I can show you some pictures. And let's look over to the chat for a minute. Hi, Cynthia. Hello from Kona, just around the corner. And Patricia from the Netherlands. And Jessica in VT. That's in the US. Where is VT? Let me see. James E., which state is VT? Or is that maybe a city?
I don't know.
Huh.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm sure Jessica will let us know. Vermont! Boo! We should have known that. Bad. Aloha, Jessica. I will remember now. Okay, and MJ wants to know if the gold will be sold separately. Yes, absolutely. All 8 colors in the set will also be available separately as individual colors. Hello, Teresa from New York. Okay, back to the book. This is a Hawaiian-based photographer. His name is Brian Shirota, or if you pronounce it in the American way, Shirota. And his photography is just so amazing. I found him through my friend Tracy on Instagram. And just, I mean, look at these photos. You know how extremely difficult it is to find these birds out in nature here in Hawaii? They're super shy, extremely difficult to see, and they only live in higher elevations. So, yeah. Anyhow, this Akiapola'au is sitting on a branch of Ohia lehua. And then you can see some more over here and here. And these trees, or the flowers of the trees, come in different colors. I think mostly in red, but I've also seen orange and kind of a peachy color and even yellow. And I can show you the different colors in this beautiful book called Le Aloha by Meleana Estes. Highly recommend this book if you're into flowers, if you're interested about Hawaiian culture. There's a lot of story, lots of background in this book. And over here you can see all the different colors of Ohia lehua. So the peach I mentioned earlier, the yellow, the red. And then this lei was also made using a little bit of fern material. And I think also a'ali'i in between here. All right. Sorry about the cable. Let me secure this a little bit. Okay. Gonna set the books to the side, and also I will put the titles of the books in the description below. All right, let's get started. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. The format of my cards, I wrote this down so I don't forget, is 6 by 4.5 inches or 11 by 15 centimeters. I'm going to start by taping down 3 sides of my card. You don't have to do that. I mean, it's totally fine to work with open edges here and to just, you know, paint over the edges. But for this project, I kind of wanted to have a bit of definition here. And again, you can use any kind of low tack washi tape. Okay, if you have trouble removing your washi tape, you can heat it up with a hairdryer. And in general, I always recommend, especially if you're using a new paper that you haven't used before, that you just test how it reacts to washi tape, because not all papers work well with washi tape in my experience. Okay, so with a pencil, let's see, you can divide your paper into 2 halves. So just very lightly draw a line in the center, like this. And then let's see, I want my larger lei here at the bottom to go to this point. And then I'm going to connect this point here with this curve and finish it over on this side. And then we'll do the same thing for the second strand a little bit further up. Now, if you're planning to make this card and give it away to a friend or a family member, and you want to maybe add some text, you want to take that into consideration too. So on my card here in this example, I could write something here, for example. There's definitely enough space. Even up here, maybe just maybe one letter, and then a little text down here. But if you don't want, you know, that much of a white space, you can also add maybe even a third lei here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to already go to my eraser and try to lighten up those lines a little bit. With this kneadable eraser, you can either roll over your pencil drawing like this, or you can just use it as a regular eraser. When you roll it over your pencil sketch, it is even more gentle on the paper. Okay, here we go. So you might not be able to see it anymore on screen, but I can still see my lines here. And that's how I recommend that you do it as well. Just erase it to the point where you can barely see the lines. Okay, let's add some watercolor. Next step. This is going to be a very loose way of painting. So what we're going to do is basically just put down blobs. Let me just grab my ceramic palette here and add a little bit of my matcha green. Water it down. And bear in mind, we're going to add a little bit of red in between. So, excuse me. Okay, let me have a sip of tea here. I'm rinsing my brush and I'm going to pick up a little bit of lemon yellow, mix it in with my green to create a little bit of a lighter shade of green. And just adding it. And again, I'm rinsing my brush, adding more of the lemon yellow. Now we have a pretty bright lime green. I don't want to add too much of this lime green. This is just for accentuating a few highlights in my wreath. And again, make sure you don't overpaint all the areas in between. Okay, and then next we're going to do the lei down below. I'm just going to continue with my bright lime green, dotting it here and there. So if you're new to this channel and possibly also new to my art challenge, I host an art challenge every month. We have a theme. This month it's Hawaiian flower lei. And then we have 4 prompts per month. Every week is a different prompt. And on top of that, I also have what's called side quests, which are optional, but which add a little bit of more of an interest to this challenge. And I believe that one of the side quests said shapes first, as opposed to, outlines first. And this is pretty much what I'm doing today. So instead of going in with a very detailed pencil sketch, drawing the outlines of the flower shapes first and the leaves, we're doing something very abstract here, just putting down shapes and blobs. And then after this initial first step, we're going to add the details, add the outlines. I find this extremely relaxing, this way or this approach, to get the shapes down first, where you honestly can't go wrong. It's just so, it really doesn't matter what those blobs look like in the beginning, as long as you get the general shape of these curves right. You can change everything later. Picking up my red color, and again, you do not have to have this exact color. If you have a nice bright red, or like an orangey red even, I did show you those photos with different colored flowers. So you could even make them yellow or orange. It all works. Adding some water. Over in the chat, MJ says, I was just thinking that it looked very relaxing. Can't wait to try it at home. Okay, before I go in with the red, I want to check that I'm not adding it to those areas where there's still a lot of water. Like here, for example, I'm going to start putting in the red blobs in between those areas that are fairly dry. I'm personally not too concerned about the colors mixing here. However, red and green do mix to brown. And it does, or it can cause muddy colors. So just a little reminder there. But again, I'm not too concerned about this because there's definitely enough of the bright red still showing through. And just with these red and green blobs, we can already see our wreath coming together. So what I'm doing now is just trying to make it look relatively even. So you can see here I have this bump, which I kind of want to unbump by adding a bit more color to this side. And last but not least, this corner up here. All right, so I have a little kink in here as well. It's not really that round. So let's see if I can add a little more here. All right, I'm rinsing my brush, picking up a little bit of lemon yellow, mixing it with my red. I have a vibrant reddish orange. And just adding this to a few of those red spots. All right, I'm rinsing my brush again and putting it to the side. Let's see if I can do, okay. Oh, and you know what? I completely forgot to mention the colored pencils, and I actually did not get them ready either. So let's see. Apologies, we have one more art supply we're going to use. That is colored pencils. I'm looking for maybe this one. That looks good. It's a Derwent inktense. The color is iron green, dark green. And let's pick a red. This looks good. Another Derwent inktense poppy red. So both of these are water soluble. So they are watercolor pencils. However, once they're dry, they're not water soluble, or you can't reactivate them anymore, which makes them very unique. Usually with watercolor pencils, you know, they behave just like watercolor. You can reactivate them easily, but these ones are very unique. Okay, but these ones come in a little later. First, let's see. So I'm just trying to estimate how wet my paper still is. The best way to do that, and I'm going to lift it up, even though I tipped it down to the table. That's fine. Okay, so when you tilt your paper, you can see that sheen in the red parts, and you can see that the green parts are pretty dry for the most part. So usually, you know, I would just wait until everything is dry, but today I'm going to continue with my round tube size brush, and I'm going to just start with the green areas. So I'm going to pick up a higher concentration of my green paint, meaning less water, more paint. You can see it's a lot darker, it's more opaque. A creamy consistency. And then I'm just gonna go in and start outlining a few leaves here and there. And I actually really like this effect of a bit of a blur of the lines. You know, as you can see here, it kind of blends softly into the background. And why not add a few of the ferns too? I showed you earlier in the Lei Aloha book. There were a few ferns. And with my brush held upright so I can utilize the pointy tip, I'm very loosely drawing in leaf shapes and a few ferns sticking out like this. Okay, let me dilute the green a little more. This technique that I'm showing you today works pretty much for all lei or all garlands, wreaths. You can always start by looking at the wreath that you would like to paint, choosing the colors, and then just loosely starting with the shapes. And I personally think it's also really fun to not paint the whole thing, but to kind of like cut it off like I did here. I mean, of course, you know, there's beauty in painting circles for sure. So if you're painting a wreath, you can place it in the center of your paper and then write a quote in the center. That absolutely works. And if you followed me here for a while, you know that I have painted quite a few wreaths here on YouTube and some live streams. But yeah, just as an inspiration, you know, change up the shape, change up where on the paper you place your subject. And as you can see, I'm really keeping it loose here. I'm just kind of like scribbling my leaves on here. Okay, I'm going to look over to the chat in a minute. Are there any questions? And let me know if you're struggling with this technique or if it's actually relaxing you right now. So how is it going with this particular live stream today? Okay, Mom says, Keiko-chan, this color of Hawaiian Lei are so beautiful. I like it very much. Yoo-hoo! Really pretty. Yeah, it's very festive too, isn't it? Or is it just me? I guess it's almost like the classical Christmas color pattern here as well, isn't it? Red and green. Even though I really have to say, in the last few years, I've come to like other color combinations for the winter festive seasons a lot. You know, like blue and silver, or even completely other colors. Turquoise and gold. But yeah, I think this is a classic, isn't it? Red and green and gold. All right, we're gonna come back to the leaves in a minute, but now that my red blobs have dried almost all the way except for these few ones, I'm gonna switch to the red. I'm still using my size 2 round brush. And again, I'm using more paint, less water, because I want a more intense and opaque layer for my line drawing. All right, let me move the paints over just for a minute so I can, access this upper part. Okay, and again, I'm holding my brush upright and I'm resting my pinky finger here on the side so I can stabilize my hand better. And then I'm doing quick strokes here for these Ohia Lehua flowers. Basically, you're drawing half pom-poms. And again, you don't have to be too exact here. They can go in all directions because this is a lei and they were woven into the lei. You have this freedom of letting them go into all directions. As opposed to if you look at Ohia Lehua on the tree, they always grow to the top. So not always, but I'd say most of them you'd find going into the same direction. Whereas in a lei like this one, they might have been woven into a lei where the whole strand, is covered with flowers all around. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint. I do want to keep my paint pretty opaque. And especially if your blobs here turned out to be relatively dark and saturated, you want to make sure that once you go over these areas, that your paint is dark enough to be visible. All right, and every now and then, kind of take a step back to see, how full it is. I feel like that's definitely enough flowers over here. There's quite the weight over here, so I want to make sure that I have enough on this side here as well to balance my composition. A few over here. And in between, I'm also going to add a few of these little elliptic shapes. These indicate some flower buds. And in general, I really like to loosen up my wreath with little elements like these ones. So dots, little circles, little fern twigs, just so that it's a bit more loose and a bit less compact. Even though these are kind of, I gotta say, today I'm a bit heavy-handed, so these are pretty massive. Creating some massive lei today. This must be for a really, really big festival. Let's move over to the bottom lei. And again, I'm picking up more of the red color and just a little bit of water. So the consistency of this paint is almost like cream. Half and half or cream. Whereas when we painted the blobs, I used a consistency that more resembles more, I don't know, tea maybe, or coffee. I believe it's really one of the hardest things to overcome, especially as a beginner, but also as an intermediate painter, to get the ratio right for what you want to do with the paints or what you want to paint. The ratio between water and the paint itself. And then you might find the correct ratio, and then 10 minutes later, you can't, because it's, you know, it's tricky to be consistent with watercolor. And for me personally, it's really interesting to see the differences between those two wreaths. So definitely I can tell that for the first one, I used a lot less paint for the blobs. So I made the background a lot lighter. Whereas today, as I said earlier, I'm a bit more heavy-handed. But honestly, I think that's also the beauty of creating. It's not going to be the same every time. And you're going to learn so much from that experience too. I can definitely see, okay, this is why it looks different and what do I like better. So next time I paint this, I can put that into consideration. Okay, as you can see me using the tip of the brush also to add these little dots here. On top of the stamens of these. It's actually not the stamens. I'm not sure what these parts of the flowers are called for, you know, specifically the Ohia lehua. But they do have little dots like that, usually in a bit of a lighter color. And later on, we're going to add some of the gold to accentuate that. Yeah, I like it. It looks kind of fluffy today. Okay, over in the chat, MJ says, "Oh, so pretty. I must do this with my 6-year-old Gunnar. He will love doing this with Gumi." They call you Gumi? That's so funny. Is that like grandma, but Gumi? It's cute. It almost sounds like a character from maybe Sesame Street or, you know, another kids show. Oh, cute. Okay. Yeah, it's really lovely. MJ paints a lot of my motifs and live streams with her grandchildren. And that's, yeah, it's just lovely. It makes my heart happy. Okay. Let's add a few of these little flower buds in here as well. And preferably, I'm going to put these where I can balance out the composition a little bit. So in areas that have a lot of green still, those little elliptic shapes can be added. Or honestly, even outside of the wreath, kind of like floating. And that's also a good method to level out your lei. So if you have like, you know, an area where it's a bit too thick, you can go in and add a few of these little squigglies to make this part here, at least optically, a bit wider, and to kind of just like create more of an even shape. Okay, now I can see that I have a lot of spots in here that are still just blobs. So I'm going to go back in with my green color. Let's pick up a little bit more green. Again, fairly opaque. So more paint, less water. And then adding more leaves in those areas that still have just the background in them. Please feel free to also maybe choose to not fill these areas. You know, if you like the look of seeing those blends in the background, you might choose to actually not fill these up completely. That's totally up to you. Like for example here, I gotta say, I kind of like the look of this. Yeah, it's a bit unfinished, but I think it looks pretty good. Plus, I'm also going to add some details with colored pencils. So at this point, I'm going to call the watercolor layers finished, and I'll go back in with the colored pencils, and then the very last step will be to add some highlights with my golden shimmer paint. I'm going to set my palette to the side. Okay, let's have more tea. Yeah, it's not even 10 a.m. here in Hawaii. So I'm still kind of in my morning routine, drinking lots of tea, and then when I'm done with the tea, I'll have a cup of coffee. What do you guys like to drink in the morning? Any other tea lovers? I know that there are lots of coffee lovers out there. But anyone likes a good cup of tea in the morning, or 5 like me? I love having black tea or green tea in the morning, or, you know, both. Like start with the green tea and then have black tea. And then around lunchtime, I have maybe like 1 cup of coffee, but not every day. I'm pretty much of a tea drinker. What's golden coffee? Is that just coffee with milk, or is that with spices? I've heard of golden milk, which is, I think it's like a spice mix with milk, right? Like almost like a chai. Kerstin says, yeah, she loves a good cup of tea too. Yeah, Carrie, I know you love tea. Yeah, Carrie and we discuss tea. Matcha, yeah. Okay, so yes, golden coffee is with spices and creamer, like turmeric and ginger. Yeah, I love that stuff too. I mean, it's basically drinking a chai, but with coffee. Super yummy. I also like mixing coffee with hot chocolate, or, you know, cocoa and milk. Oh, so good. Okay, this looks pretty dry. However, if you use water-soluble pencils, you do not have to wait for the paper to dry completely. The leads of these watercolor pencils and all water-soluble pencils are very soft, so you don't really have to be afraid of, you know, ripping the paper. Whereas if you use regular colored pencils, you gotta be really careful because the lead is much harder and you always run the risk of ripping the paper if you use them on wet paper. So I have this dark green color here. It's called iron green. Has a little bit of a blue tint to it. It's really beautiful. It's kind of like it's almost like an indigo green. And what I'm trying to do here is to create a little bit of depth to my wreath. It's a bit tricky to explain, but imagine you look at this garland or this lei, then some flowers will be on the surface, and then some will kind of like recede into the center. You know, there's not like one level where all the flowers are at. Some are like further inside, some are sticking out more. And in order to indicate the depth of this lei, I'm adding a few strokes of a dark color. Now, if you're watching me do this and you think this looks absolutely hideous, then you don't have to do that at all. You know, you can always stop when you're happy with what you're doing and with your composition. If you like this very happy look of the lei you see below, then please feel free to just skip this step. So instead, what you can also do, you know, if you don't want to create those deep spaces, you could just go in and add a few more outlines with your colored pencil. Just add in a few more leaves, maybe emphasize some of the ferns. So you totally have a choice here, and I'm showing you both so you can decide which one you like better. And if this color pencil is too dark for you, you're absolutely welcome to choose a green that's a bit more close to that matcha green that I used as watercolor earlier. Yeah, so what do you think? Which version do you like better? Just continuing with the outlines here at the bottom or adding some depth? While I let you decide, I'm grabbing my red pencil and I'm going over some of my strokes that are a bit weak here, you know, where probably the background was a bit more opaque than I wanted it to be. So I'm just kind of emphasizing my strokes and adding a few more in between. I'm going to do the same here with my lei here at the bottom. Also, if you have a hard time creating these tiny dots with a brush, now would be the time to add them with your colored pencil instead. Because I think we can all agree that for most people, holding a pencil and drawing a pencil with a pencil is a bit easier than with a brush, especially when it comes to tiny, tiny details like this one here. Making little dots, making tiny strokes. Okay, over in the chat, we are, yes, tea lovers, good, chai tea latte, matcha lavender, ooh, I've never had matcha with lavender. So is the lavender, is that like a cream? Or is it like lavender extract? Just add it to the matcha? Ooh, that sounds so intriguing. Huh, I've never considered lavender with matcha. That sounds really good. I love lavender. I actually have herbal teas containing lavender. I think it's actually good for, you know, sleepy time tea, chamomile, lavender. What's the other one? Gosh, I'm blanking on that one now. But yeah, lavender. That's fascinating. Just dried lavender flower. Oh, I gotta try that. With warm milk or cream? Oh, so you make basically matcha latte with lavender. That sounds really good. Sounds like something we could paint too. Wouldn't that be lovely? Matcha green, lavender purple. Sounds like a really nice illustration. And Mom says, Hi everyone. I have to drink green tea 2 or 3 cups every morning. I have to. I must. She's so sweet. Yeah, she always tells me that she basically won't make it through the day if she doesn't have her couple cups of green tea in the morning. Oh, so sweet. And hi, Rudi. Rudi says, I love the tea you send in your parcels as a freebie. Ooh, yeah. I love that too. They have different flavors. So this one here is the guava ginseng with green tea. This is maybe my favorite. I also really like the Maui one. Do I have that here? I don't think I have that here right now. Yeah, they have different black teas and green teas. Very good. And you know, it's convenient. It's a tea bag. So, yeah, in every order. All right. Well, this is looking different, huh? What a difference. Interesting. Alrighty, let's add some gold. No way. I keep looking at the chat. That's sweet. Woody says, and the tea bags I craft into my junk journal because it's pretty. Oh, danke schön. Das ist so nett. So she said, are you doing the wrapping, like the wrappers into your journal? They are pretty, huh? Yeah, let me show you the package. We're talking pretty designs, pretty. I mean, look how pretty that is. That's cool, huh? I think I remember us doing a live stream here on YouTube where we drew food packaging, and I think I had one of these cartons also. You know, we drew one of those as well. But I think it was the Mango Maui. Okay, let's switch over to gold. So for all shimmer watercolors, there is a little tip I have for you. So go ahead and add some water to your shimmer paint. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're using handmade watercolor or, you know, watercolor from a bigger company. Usually all the shimmer watercolors have a little bit of an activation time. So I should have done this a few minutes ago, then letting the water like seep into the paint, make it soft. And another thing I would like to point out is that everything is going to be glittery now. So as soon as you'll dip your paintbrush into the water, you know, the glitter will spread everywhere. And if you use the same water to go back into your non-shimmer paints, you're probably going to end up with a little bit of shimmer everywhere. So just as a little warning here. So if you want to avoid that, you could maybe use a designated paintbrush and, you know, your own cup of water for your glitter paint. Or if you have 2 water containers, like me, you know, I always, oh, you can see the gold here at the bottom. So rinsing your brush twice, so to speak, also helps with getting rid of the residue of the glitter paint. But maybe you also really don't mind having a little bit of glitter and shimmer all around. Okay, so as you can see, the paint now has a very smooth and creamy consistency. So this is the point where you want to get to with your shimmer watercolor. And I'm using my paintbrush tip, kind of like a stamp, and adding a few dots here and there, preferably at the, right by where the flower strokes end. So right here at the top. And I'm just jumping back and forth between my two lei. Doesn't really make sense. You can do this more methodically. I'm just kind of like jumping back and forth. Okay, let's see what's going over in the chat. Suze says it was the Mango Maui. I have that one in the sketchbook I'm using now. Yes, so referring back to the live stream I mentioned earlier that we did together. Yeah, we did paint that food packaging of the Mango Maui tea. And then Jessie. Hi, Jessie. Hello from Keiko. That really is so close to where I am. Just like 2 miles. Arrived at 9, but have just signed into the chat. This lays so relaxing. I'm glad to hear it. Are you guys painting along today? I know that for you folks over in Europe, it's really late now. It's like 10 p.m. But I think some of you are painting along, aren't you? Okay, Sue says, I have a set of 6 Gansai Tambi Pearl colors, which are gold. I'm using one of those. Yeah, those are beautiful. I have a few of those paints too, but not the shimmery ones, just the regular ones. But yeah, for those paints as well, just add a little bit of water. Let the water sit until your paint is creamy. And depending on the manufacturer, you may have to wait a little longer for it to get there, or even add a little more water. Okay, I'm going to lift up my paper one more time. Actually, you know what? I can, at this point, remove the washi tape. Or let's... Oh, it removes itself. Look at that. Okay, that was easy. And now that I'm tilting my paper, you can see, I hope you can, see the gold reflection a little bit. It really shows up well, like when I look at it, but on the camera, I'm not so sure. Anyways, it's a good method to see where I could maybe add a few more. How about here? Yeah, I don't want to add too much. It really is supposed to just be a few highlights. Did you hear that? That was my stomach growling. I hope somebody's making breakfast. Somebody making breakfast?
Somebody hungry?
Did you hear my stomach growl? Oh, it was really loud. You will? Ooh. Okay, here we go. Yeah, look how different these turned out. So fun. I mean, I love them both. This just looks a bit more, how should I say, you know, more on the go, easygoing. I just literally, without much thought, put the colors down for this one, and I like the outcome. But, you know, when I did it, I wasn't even sure that this would be the lei we're going to paint in the stream. And then this one I feel is way more compacted. It looks like bigger, more of a oomph. Also, I used a different type of shimmer here, more of a silvery one. And then this is gold, which I feel like is more subtle. Yeah. All right, let me know. Do you have a preference? Also, how did your lei turn out? As always, if you post your results on Instagram, please remember to tag me at Alohawatercolors. And I will actually host another live stream very soon, next week, I believe, for week 2. So we're going to paint another lei. What was it again? The Maui lei Lokelani rose, combined with the Kauai lei Mokihana berry, I think. And I have a little bit of an idea how we can do that. It's not going to be like this. It's going to be totally different. So please keep an eye on my newsletter for updates. And as always, I'm going to put the link to my newsletter down below in the description. If you haven't signed up yet, I always send out reminders and templates, usually. Not for this one, but usually I send out templates for my live stream as well. All right, and then in 2 weeks, I will host another live stream introducing the new Japan-inspired watercolor set. I don't really have a date for that yet, but it's probably going to be around the 20th of May for that live stream. And then the new set will come out on May 24th on Sunday. And again, I will let you all know through my newsletter. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's session. Please leave me a like and a comment if you have a little time down below. That really helps people to find my videos. And I'll see you again next week. And until then, happy creating and